Welcome to the survival battle mechanics explained, and also the new magical mechanics also explained, and of course the brand new Law of Ice Magic. You may be wondering why these are all in one massive video rather than their own separate ones. It's because if they were, they'd probably been about 3-minute videos each, and that's kind of a waste if you ask me. I'd rather just have you have one big fat video with all the information in. So yes, into the Survival Battles Explained. Survival Battles are of course the brand new battle type coming to Warhammer 3, and no, they are not the only battle type, as has been pointed out by Total War on Twitter. Didn't think that we'd need to point that out, but no, this isn't the only battle type we're going to get. We're of course going to have traditional battles, we're just yet to see them. Anyway, these battles occur when a faction embarks on an expedition through a hostile realm, so it's safe to say that when you are playing as a, quote, good faction, you'll have at least 4 of these battles to complete versus the 4 Chaos factions. I'm also quite interested to see if Chaos factions will have these battles going against Kislev, so instead of going through a realm of Chaos, you'll be going through the realm of, well, man. I'd also be quite interested to see how you play these on the defensive, which must be possible because they have mentioned that these survival battles will be available in multiplayer, so I'll be very excited to see how that works. So the battle we played, we had 3 control points we had to capture and defend before moving on to the next one. Each point under enemy control applies debuffs to your army, so you have some incentive to hold them once you have them, rather than abandoning them to move on. In the battle we played, they had the Icon of Ruin, which debuffed my army with minus 15% armor, the Icon of Blood, which debuffed minus 10% melee attack when below 50% health, and the Icon of Torment, which debuffed 15 leadership, which is quite significant. To assist in defending these points, you have building locations that open up once you capture the points. These building locations were locked, so we couldn't just place anything anywhere, but still, this is very exciting. So far, we saw 4 types of towers and 4 types of choke point obstacles, but this is still early, so there may be more coming in the future. The 4 types of tower were arrows, improved arrows, piercing explosive, and magical. As far as I could see, there was no way for the enemy to destroy these, but it could just be down to early access, or simply the AI prioritizing my units over the buildings. All these towers also looked exactly the same visually, apart from the projectiles of course, but again, that might just be an early access thing that is subject to change. The 4 types of choke point buildables were a platform that blocks enemy movement and allows your units to mount it to fire at enemies, a monument that buffs your nearby units, a trap that slows and reduces the melee stats of nearby enemies, and a high health wall that blocks enemies completely. All 4 of these can and will get destroyed by the enemies once they close in. You can upgrade from lower tiers to higher tiers and also refund buildings you don't want, which is great for when you're moving on to the next point. You can also downgrade, so in the first choke point, my middle tower was a magical tower. I wanted it to be nice and powerful, and then once I left, I didn't really need it to be that powerful, so I downgraded it to a basic arrow tower, which provided me with plenty of defense and also some resources refunded. In these battles, enemies are always coming from the rear to slow you down, so I always left some of my level 1 towers to defend the points, and that seemed to work quite well against most things. Worth knowing that if a point is recaptured by the enemy, all buildings are destroyed, so if you see them start to take the points, quickly refund your buildings to get some resources while you can. We could also summon more units to support our advance, and the types of quantities of unit we could summon got more and of higher tier the longer the battle went on. Each point captured unlocked more units and a new portal to summon units in from. Worth noting, it didn't auto switch to your most recently unlocked portal, which was a bit of a pain, but is easily fixed. You can also teleport units out of battle and send them back to your unit pool to replenish them, meaning you can bring them back at full health later in the battle. We could also upgrade the units that we had. All units had some in common like armor, and then there were specific ones for a specific unit type, like ranged units, monsters, melee fighters, and your lords and heroes. You can also give units replenishments of various things, health, and this is only HP, they won't resummon entities, and this will also contribute to the regeneration cap, vigor, and ammo. One thing I did a lot was increase the winds of magic flowing into Catherine so she could cast as many spells as possible. Now, of course, all these helping hands are at the cost of the brand new supplies resource. This is gained over time during the battle from a variety of different sources. You gain it from defeating enemy units, you gain large hits from capturing points, and then you gain them passively per capture point you are in control of. And we come to the new magic system. Now, it is pretty similar to the system that we have now, to be honest, but there is a couple of stonking great changes. And no, it's not just that sexy hourglass that makes a lot more sense than the weird blue bauble. We can now store more than 30 winds of magic in our active pool. There is nothing worse than having 30 winds of magic and no spells to cast, because you are just wasting your precious reserves, and then all of a sudden you cast a very expensive spell and you have like 6 winds of magic left. It's depressing. Now, you can store as many as you want. I don't know if there is a cap, but I definitely saw it get over 100 while I was playing, which is quite a significant amount. That is 5 casts of the most expensive spell, which we'll come to in just a moment. Now, we obviously had unlimited reserves for this battle, presumably because of it being a survival battle, but with abilities that increase the reserve, you could essentially cast spells forever. We're also getting numerical breakdowns of damage that we are doing. No more is it moderate damage, it is now an exact ish number before taking resistance and armor into account. This is great for seeing how much something actually does without having to cast it and just take a random guess. Now, of course, we come to the spells. Now, I have to apologize up front because I have made one seriously large goof, and I feel quite bad about it. It seems in my excitement, I may or may not have ever so slightly forgotten to get footage of the overcast. So I can only tell you about the base spells, but that's still plenty exciting, so let's just breeze on by and get into the spells, starting, of course, with the most exciting one, the passive. The passive for the Lore of Ice magic is Frost Shield. It provides 15 armor and 12 missile block chance map-wide for 11 seconds whenever your lovely caster casts a spell. Our first active spell is Crystal Sanctuary. It grants 66% damage resist, but the unit cannot move. This is of course targeting your friendly units, so if you have a unit in the front lines that is taking a lot of hits, you may want to consider casting this spell to keep them there even if they're not going to move. It has a 35-second duration, which is quite substantial, and also a 35-second cooldown, and it costs a stonking 14 Winds of Magic. Next up we have Frost Blades, which grants a 25% bonus to base weapon and armor piercing damage and a plus 24 to melee attack. You want to be using this on your high damage units to give them a drastic uptick in output of damage because, oh boy, 25% base and 25% AP and 24 melee attack on something like some great swords, that's going to be seriously painful. This has a 26-second duration, which is very, very significant there, and a 30-second cooldown, and it only costs 7 Winds of Magic. Ice Maiden's Kiss is a breath spell. It causes 12 damage per second in a short, wide tear shape and can be cast on the floor facing in any direction, just like any other tear spell. This isn't loads of damage, especially when you send it against some armored, but it's nice for clearing up a bit of chaff. It has a 21-second cooldown and only costs 6 Winds of Magic. Death Frost, which is a fantastic name, deals 1,800 damage over 27 seconds, and it can only be cast on a singular enemy target. This is a massive amount of damage, so you definitely want to be casting it like I was on your Bloodthirsters or any enemy lords and heroes that you spot. This has a 26-second cooldown and a cost of 12 Winds of Magic. Ice Sheet debuffs enemy units with minus 48 speed and charge speed in a massive 55 meter area of effect. This has a 17-second duration and an 18-second cooldown, and for some reason only costs 2 Winds of Magic. This is definitely a great one if you have a lot of enemy cav that's giving you a lot of trouble. Just cast this, they'll slow right down, and your other units will probably be able to catch them up, even if they're only infantry. And finally, we come to the star of this Lore of Magic, the most overpowered spell that I've seen in a very, very, very long time. It is the Heart of Winter. Now, it has 4 phases, each phase being 8 seconds long, and each one being more deadly than the last. Units inside the 30 meter area of effect are slowed by 15% and an increase in 15% per phase. They also take increasing amounts of damage, starting at 24, then 40, then 64, and finally 88 per second for the full duration. This does a ridiculous amount of damage. Once I managed to get a few enemies in a choke point, I blobbed this down, and I never actually saw anything survive it for the full duration other than single entities. This has a 37-second cooldown, which isn't particularly long, and a 24 Winds of Magic cost, which is pretty expensive, but is it worth it? Absolutely. There is nothing that could survive being in this for the full duration, other than, as I mentioned, your single entities. If there is a big blob of any enemy units, there doesn't seem to be a cap, and in my first battle, Catherine got 1,200 kills, which is pretty ridiculous. Anyway, that concludes all the new mechanics, both in the survival battle and the new magic. I did decide to merge these together because I kind of recorded the survival battle explained, and the recording was like less than 5 minutes long, so I thought I'd better just pop them into one video. Otherwise, it just kind of seems like a bit of a waste, and it also makes it a little bit easier for me since I'm a little bit busy at the moment. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave it a like if you did. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I would appreciate it oh so very much. One more big thank you to all supporters of the channel, in particular Nifty Norm and Kobe Said So. I know I mention every single time, but you guys really are crazy. Spawn me at that unclean one's tier, and I love you very much. One more thank you to every single one of you for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.